Welcome to In the Loop. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of In the Loop. I just don't know what to post. Ever had that thought when you're trying to figure out what to do on social? We're breaking it down and giving you the tools you need to keep your content fresh and up to date. This two-part episode features Katie Kinlaw, Digital Marketing Manager for Punchmark, and Evelyn Stetzer, Integrated Brand Strategist for the Smithee Group, discussing organic content and how to elevate your social strategy for success. This episode is brought to you by Punchmark, the jewelry industry's leading website provider. Join the community of nearly 500 other jewelry stores in choosing Punchmark's easy-to-run and e-commerce enabled website platform by visiting punchmark.com for your free trial demo. This episode is brought to you by the Smithee Group, a digital growth agency that helps leaders and businesses dream bigger and achieve multi-generational integrity. Through insights and intelligence, digital marketing, and advertising solutions, they help businesses expand their business and grow their revenue. The Smithee Group has helped hundreds of businesses surpass their goals and believe that whatever your business, whatever your story, they'll make it matter to your audience. All right, everybody. I am joined by Katie Kinlaw and Evelyn from the Smithee Group. How are you guys today?
Doing good.
Good. So we were talking before this about anchor and supporting strategy and what that means. It's all pretty new to me. Evelyn, would you mind just kicking us off and kind of giving us a brief overview of what those mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just start by saying my name is Evelyn. I'm an integrated brand strategist at the Smithee Group. And my job is really just helping brands find their voice and their story and then figuring out how to put that into action. So I'm really glad to be on this podcast today and thinking through how to post on your social media account. And first thing I'll say with our TSG philosophy on content is that posting on your social media account is not a vacuum in space. It really relates to everything else about your brand. And I'm glad to be on this call, or on this podcast with Katie, who's an expert on this as well. So this is the core of our content philosophy at TSG and what we really encourage our clients to do for two reasons. So first, we know that people become more loyal to brands that they consume content from on a regular basis. I know I scroll through my feed, watch tons of videos, especially on the weekend. And naturally, I feel like I become more loyal to these brands because they're spending time making content. So anchor content is really just about telling good stories that people care about and listen to. And then making sure that when you're telling those stories, it's about main ideas and drivers for your brand so that your people that are following you don't miss it and learn something about you. So that's the first thing about anchor content. And second, it's about getting the best return on your investment as a brand. So spending your time and your energy making like a really long YouTube video or an educational IGTV series or a blog on your website, all of these things, we want you to get the most out of your content. So when people ask us, what do we post? It's like, pick something really solid to make that's longer form. And then we'll talk more in our next podcast about this, but how to split it up and make sure you support this and give it a good life that goes beyond just one post.
That's awesome. Katie, I know that you have a couple of ideas, but and we've had you on before, but when it comes to anchor content and content strategy, do you think that there is a place where it's strongest, where it's not worth the time? Do you have like any opinions on kind of like the overall landscape of social media?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, in terms of kind of the priority pieces here is looking at a combination of evergreen content. So essentially like pieces that are always going to continuously be relevant. It's not something that's super seasonal. Obviously it's important to like follow up on trends and making sure that you're, staying top of mind and you're capturing some of those like micro trends, but, also incorporating like those larger macro pieces that are gonna, you can continue to get a lot of use out of. And I think that it's more about looking at an integrated strategy, not just focusing on what you're going to be posting on social media, but how you can really create really a great experience on your website, because ultimately you're going to be driving those users to your site for them to then engage with your products, your brand. So making sure that you have the right messaging and figuring out how to incorporate all of these different pieces by the experience on your website, as well as pushing out, into the individual pieces on social media there as well.
Man, it's so interesting because everybody has their own voice. And I think it was last in the loop that we talked about having your own specific branding and your own kind of voice in this cacophony of websites and jewelry brands. How do you guys recommend that a store goes about finding their own voice or branding this content that they're going to start putting out?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Katie said, that evergreen content is so important, and having stuff that people want to continuously come back to. So for a couple of our retailers, we've seen them even turn one of their sales associates who might be younger, like knows her style, like really confident, turn them into almost like a brand ambassador and have a little corner on their website or on their social media where they constantly are trying on new pieces, having people vote Instagram stories on new pieces that they come in, do like this or that. And just turn it into this like influencer situation where people are following this person and their curation skill, and like naturally has this like halo effect on the store to be like younger, more up to speed. And it's not always about trends, because sometimes they bring the stuff that's on sale or outdated merchandise and just style it with other pieces. So it really is a great way to make it feel super curated and branded for that store.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree with your thoughts there. And I've seen personally in working with different clients, and how having that specific voice is so important. A combination of like different channels as well, right? Like creating blog posts and stylized shoots, showcasing specific pieces, going on Instagram story, and I think that it's important to realize too that even if you don't have that person in store that's like, more young or more in tune, I think as long as you take it step by step and you realize that, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but figuring out how you can really determine what makes you specifically unique. Maybe you're, the longest running store in your area and you have a ton of history, and really figuring out how you can highlight that. I think there's tons of different things you can do to incorporate your specific messaging as well. So that's a good point.
I really like that idea of like kind of developing an influencer for your store. That's a really kind of smart take on it, because we see influencers I see them on Instagram and YouTube and everything all the time. And it's like, yeah, why can't you just have one of your sales reps or whoever just take some notes, right?
Or even an intern. Like TSG is writing a blog right now on why interns are great, because usually they're good with the phone and they know the styles that people like. So it's awesome. Super handy to have in a store. But a few of our retailers actually like made sort of like icons out of some older members on their team, some senior members on their team. Like this one guy dresses up as a diamond and like does diamond education. I kid you not.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
And people like know him as Mr. Diamond, and it's a thing. Or like another retailer I know has a wish list fairy, and it's a team member that puts on a fairy costume. It's a lot, but it's like so funny and so memorable that it's like, when it comes back around Christmas time or like Easter, you're like, well, there they are again. And you just can't ignore it. It's that kind of stuff that helps people be memorable. No, I'm not recommending everybody have a store mascot, but it definitely like puts a little of pizzazz on your social media feed.
For sure. Yeah, I've heard of some people also doing, Facebook auctions, and where it's as low tech as just going live on Facebook, posting a piece saying, "Hey, this retails for $400. Buy it now at $300. Otherwise, bidding starts $100, and we're going to run this for 9 minutes." And then they go and they just kind of have a conversation about the piece. They do some education on it. And it's like, what did that cost? Just cost you having your phone, putting it up, getting it, maybe a tripod, maybe not, maybe just a stack of books, and just going from there. And I think people get a little bit too intimidated about all of this. It's not as high tech as you expect. But maybe we'll move on and we'll say, how can you start to measure if your stuff is actually having impact, if it's reaching people? I know that it's probably different for every channel, but how can you start seeing if your stuff is actually working?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And that's where we can have a conversation around specific analytics and how to access that data. I think that there are kind of a common set of like tools that you can use. I think the predominant one is going to be Google Analytics, which I feel it can be a little intimidating for people because it has a lot of reports and a lot of graphs, but figuring out how to measure the channels of traffic. Is it coming from Facebook? Facebook? Is it coming from Instagram? Is it coming from YouTube? And, using those reports that are at your fingertips to gauge, okay, what was my traffic in the past historically? When did I start a specific campaign? And how can I then measure compared to that historical data in terms of growth? I think that's kind of like the standard thing that I would suggest for people just to get a little bit more comfortable with. But, Facebook and Instagram have their own individual reporting dashboards and tools that you can also access to measure traffic, clicks if you're running specific ads, impressions, things of that nature. I think it's all kind of at your fingertips. You just have to figure out the best avenue for you, again, whether it's directly in the platform or something a little bit more robust like analytics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends to what your goal is for the anchor content, right? So maybe with one piece, you're trying to drive people specifically to the website to read a blog. So if your call to action says, visit the link in bio, you can see if they've clicked that link in bio or if they've saved your post for later. And you can look at those metrics and see how many people did that over time and see the traffic go to your site, like Katie's saying. So that's a short-term goal. But of course, we always have like long-term goals for our social media accounts. We all want to see the numbers tick up. We always want to see them, follow us and stay engaged over time. So that's really the long game of anchor content. And we really see like one person that's strong and adding value to your community and actually commenting on your posts. So we at TSG believe in comments, not just ghost followers. We don't care about high numbers because if they're not commenting or liking, then like they're not actually engaging. So we say, one that's solid, that's engaged is a winner. So slow and steady growth is a good way to measure growth too.
Evelyn, do you have any suggestions on how they actually get comments? Is it as simple as just saying, drop a comment with what your favorite one is or what you do today or something like that? Or is there like a little bit more psychological way that you can do it?
Oh, there's so many ways. I mean, everyone wants to be able to share their opinion and not in a way that's like shallow, right? But, either or kind of questions versus a yes or no question. I feel like people are less likely to comment like totally agree. They're probably more likely to say, I would prefer actually to learn more about XYZ, or, oh, that's really interesting that you said this. What about this? And so people want like thought-provoking questions, just like we're doing right now. This is very thought-provoking to give a little bit of more of their opinion and have like a say in the community.
Nice. So let's move into like, how do you go about identifying kind of your business's initiatives and strategically planning, and how do you start actually setting out a roadmap for setting these things up?
Yeah, so I think, when I have conversations with my clients that I'm doing marketing with, it starts first by just creating a list. I really recommend them just to sit down with a piece of paper or just in like a Word document and really, write down as specific as they can in terms of the main priorities for their businesses. And if we're talking about jewelers specifically, typically they'll say something as broad as like bridal, or they'll say something like custom jewelry. And I think that that's helpful, but not really helpful when you're looking at the, overarching scope of, of their marketing. It's like, what brands are important to you? What conversations are you having with people in store? I think your customers the best. And that really should be the driving factor of how you kind of map everything. Do you have specific promotions that are coming up? Do you have specific like trunk shows? I think getting as specific as you can, writing down that list. And then again, looking at your site, I think first is your number one foundation, and making sure that do you have the appropriate pages if you want to do a large engagement ring campaign on social media? Do you have a really great landing page to then drive that traffic to, that's engaging, that has great user flow, has a great call to action? I think creating that list, looking at your website, see maybe where those content gaps are, and then go from there. Look at a marketing calendar, look at what you have going on for Q3, Q4, and kind of map it out that way. I think that's probably the best place to start.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. With high level, like what's your brand's goals overall? Mapping back to that always trying to sell more bridal, always trying to, sell fashion jewelry, this, that, and the other, but then also quarter by quarter, because I know that everybody has their specific Q4 goals and metrics they want to hit, and trying to think of unique ways to do that. And the TSG, we also kind of break it down month by month, because, maybe for August, we want to highlight summer proposals or wedding bands because we know that it's hot right now, that people are getting engaged more than ever, or looking for sentimental gifts. So want to make sure we harness the seasons too, but not being so specific that, just selling summer jewelry is not high enough of a strategic goal, but it is definitely part of it.
Yeah. So this episode was originally supposed to be all about content calendars, but I guess there is an argument to be made. So do you feel that you should have a content calendar, or do you kind of feel that it should kind of have that sense of organic, this is what's happening right now? Which one do you kind of subscribe to?
I think you have to have a content calendar, but in order to have a content calendar, you need to have a content strategy, or else you're sitting there with, a bunch of pictures and words in your head and you're like, how do I map this? So a content strategy will tell you, okay, I need half my calendar to be about bridal, and then I need the other 2 quarters to be about, my campaign for this month. And then the other to be about what's happening in my store and stuff that's super human and engaging, or, your blog topic for that month. So you can kind of slate out your entire calendar and then just oscillate and vary between those topics so that it feels organic and feels like it's not the same thing back to back or looks the same back to back. Yeah. So you're not just shooting at the wind. We want you to have a target you're shooting at when you're making your content, taking your pictures. Again, the point of anchor content is really just to save you time and not make you wonder what your goals are for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Or else you might look back on your content calendar and be like, we never talked about the sale we had.
Yeah.
Well, what happened? We did ads, we put it on our website, but then we didn't see it on social media. How did that happen? And that happens. We hear that all the time. And so our goal at TSG is just to make sure that high level what's going on in your whole brand. And then you can just apply it to every platform, with social media being its own storefront, its own different arm of your business that is a human acting in the world.
Nice. So maybe we'll jump in with a quick ad read. This episode is brought to you by the Gem Lightbox. And I'd like to introduce everybody to this awesome piece of tech called the Gem Lightbox. It's made by jewelers for jewelers. And the Gem Lightbox allows anyone with a smartphone to capture studio quality images and 360-degree videos of your jewelry in just one click. The images and videos are e-commerce and social media ready. It kind of ties into what we're talking about today. Pop one of those things in, get a chance to post it. So until the end of the month, our listeners can check out with coupon code Loupe, that's LOUPE, to receive an exclusive offer of $20 off. You can find more information and purchase the Gem Lightbox on pickupmedia.com/Loupe. That's pickup, PICUP, media.com/Loupe. Don't miss out on this exclusive offer today. Kind of goes into it. Go in, take a cool picture. I think when we were posting on Instagram, we took a picture, a 360 video of Ross's engagement ring. And it was so cool. I love that. You get a whole bunch of details and you can see the engraving in it. Really neat. So let's move on to the actual actionable advice that we can give them, because right now we're talking kind of high level strategic, but let's jump into making the content actually rubber to the ground sort of thing. First of all, what do you guys think that they need to start making their content?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it's a combination of, again, having that high level plan and at least having some form of a blueprint to know kind of where they're going. And then in terms of the actual tools to use, I think it's depending on the type of content that you're creating. If you're creating a landing page, if you're creating a post that's then tied to that landing page. But I think a lot of it ties into really strong imagery, and even having a very high level creative brief. Let's say, you're doing a specific campaign for the holidays and you're highlighting a specific set of gifts. What is the, particular imagery? Are you really going to highlight, gold tones or silver tones? Are there specific brand colors that you want to include? So I think having a high level understanding of some of the props that you want to use is super helpful. And then, having specific tools, the ability to, we talked about the Gem Lightbox, to be able to take, product photos. Really you use your smartphone for that, right? Predominantly a really great quality camera is right in your fingertips, normally either iPhone, Android. I think that's step number one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think that they need filters? What do you guys think about filters? Is that cheesy? Is that considered, is that a nah? Or presets?
So when I work with some of our clients and training their associates on photography is actually something in my wheelhouse outside my job at TSG. And something I say is you always want to be best prepared pre, so you don't have to edit and post. And that's just like photography language for like, just get good lighting, get a good angle, pay attention to tiny things. Like if your manicure is messed up, or if like the light looks yellow, pay attention to those little details and you'll save yourself so much time in editing and post. But definitely would agree with presets. I mean, you don't have to go out and buy a preset on Etsy. There are usually just a couple tweaks you can do to exposure and contrast and adding a little bit of blue so the diamonds look, brighter. Don't distort the colors, of course, because that will change the value of the diamond, as we all know. But just adding something that makes it look like it's your brand and is consistent on your feed is super important. But yeah, an iPhone can do that, and you have apps for that too. So it's encouraging to tell people, like, if you have a smartphone, like, you're already 99% there. You just need a little bit of a creative eye and attention to detail.
Yeah, I always think you can buy all sorts of presets and fancy things on there, but in the end, it's just like, get a good phone. Honestly, like, those cameras on those phones are ridiculous nowadays. I mean, I think on the iPhone, you don't need the latest one, but even just an X or higher, or one of the Android, whatever those things are called, just any of those things are going to take, I don't know, I'm an iPhone person, but you can just take such stunning photos, and then you can just upload those. Just try to give it to, if you have an intern, if your photo, insensitive when it comes to, like, you don't really trust your eye when it comes to, hand it to someone else. Take the photos, take a bunch of them, make sure that they're crisp, hand it to someone else, have them just mess with the levels just a little bit. And then when you post it, it's just all going to be a lot more consistent. And I mean, what's the best advice I can give to anybody on anything is go and look at sites that you like. Go and look at other jewelry stores that you think are killing the social game and see what they're doing. And not that you have to steal their ideas, but you can see, like, are they adding a yellow tint to everything? Are they adding a blue tint to everything? Do they include text on their images? I don't love that, but some people do. I mean, so that's my spiel about it. Do you guys have any recommended channels that they should be posting? We talk a lot about Instagram, and everyone with Instagram goes Facebook. Do you have any recommended channels that they should also be hitting up as well?
I've seen a couple of our clients really do well on Pinterest and get a lot of traction on their website, especially as we've seen the whole jewelry industry, especially in like the brick and mortar stores, go e-commerce, which is awesome. Katie, you're shaking your head. You're like, yes, yeah. Let's get it online. Let's sell online. That is a huge way to start driving traffic on Pinterest to specific products. So we see people get tons of views there. And it's as simple as just, kind of copying and pasting your strategy for Facebook and Instagram, because you can use the same assets, a little bit of difference in terms of the keywords you use and how you describe your products, but it really is all about the imagery driving as well. So the good news is that Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram are all very, very image driven. So you can kind of use those pictures across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to kind of ping off of that too is talking about utilizing the same kind of assets. In terms of things that I've seen, kind of like standard faux pas, I've seen some people fall into like the caveat of just taking pictures of products like in the case itself instead of like taking it out. Big no. And making sure that you really have like really great product shots, that's actually on like a visible surface. I typically prefer it on white. I feel like that looks a little bit cleaner personally. If you have the gem light box, I think that that's a great thing to utilize. But even if you don't, you can really build, like, if you don't have a white surface, you can easily build like a little box where you can, just put like a white piece of paper and then have like a really great either like ring light or lamp that's, really strong and kind of angle it a specific way. Even that is significantly better than taking shots through the actual case itself. I think that's a big no. But I just don't think people are super educated about these things, which is why I feel like it's important to highlight. And I think another thing too is, again, really figuring out how you can then stylize that piece on an actual person. I've found from experience, in working with clients that are really trying to push e-commerce, that they get more engagement off of posts, whether it's like ads, whether it's landing pages that actually have stylized imagery of a person in their store or whoever it is, an influencer that's like showcasing, this ring or this necklace. it tends to get much more engagement than just the individual product photo too. So it's something to consider if you have the ability to do that as well.
Yes, Katie, you're speaking my language. This is awesome. So just want to give a few examples. So if you follow some direct-to-consumer jewelry brands that are just crushing the content game, I think of Majuri, I think of Catbird, I think of Consider the Wildflowers in Nashville, and they specifically inspired TSG's Amazon list because they use little things of marble, things that have, some texture. They're really bringing in things that feel natural in the midst of, fine jewelry and all these like gorgeous diamonds. It's nice to have that bit of contrast that kind of softens it. So they really do a great job. And we made an Amazon list inspired by them that has some fun ribbon and dried flowers and little mirrors. Mirrors are super fun to play with diamonds and with jewelry. It's light. So there's so many ways you can get creative if you just, do a Target run or have Amazon ship it all to you.
Some flowers, some dried flowers, some,
just
like
pull over on the road and pick some flowers up.
For sure.
Perfect.
Can we just all just agree though? Like, can we stop putting rings on food? Just no more food. I need that to end. That's not a trend I'm on. Stop putting it on celery. Stop putting it on carrots. Stop putting it in chili. I'm not into it. Please stop. Okay, moving on.
Shinola just did a campaign with candy, which is funny.
Okay, that's fine. That one actually ties in. But like putting it on a piece of celery, it was just so weird. All right, let's do some kind of quick ideas just because, so we're recording this in August, start of August. So people are going to be kind of prepping for their Christmas holiday already, most likely. Let's think of just a couple of ideas and reasons to post, or should they be prepping for kind of the end of, start of fall? Or do you think that they should just bypass that right now with their strategy and start leading towards the holiday season with their photography?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great question. Obviously, Q4 is where a lot of our jewelers get a significant amount of their revenue. And ultimately, that's, a large priority. I don't think that you should bypass fall. Fall is personally my favorite season. And not just for other reasons, pumpkin spice, whatever. But in terms of marketing itself, I feel like there's a lot of really great things that you can highlight because Thanksgiving is still in the fall, talking about if you're doing any particular sales for Cyber Week, again, that's in November. So I think making sure that you're looking at your short-term and long-term goals. What is your short-term? If that's, promoting a smaller campaign around the holidays, doing a little bit of a bigger push maybe for Cyber Week, but ultimately putting a lot of your effort and energy into looking at because people are buying, gifts for people starting in late October, early November. So I think kind of sprinkling in some of that messaging and then figuring out what your larger marketing push is going to be and definitely have that in place and prepared, I would say by early mid-October.
Nice.
Yeah, for some of our retailers, they're rescheduling the events they had to cancel throughout the last few months. Maybe that was one of their biggest trunk shows that people always look forward to, or an anniversary sale, or a bridal event or a diamond event, and they're just rescheduling it for Q3. And we've seen that be successful thus far. Some of them, instead of calling them, the Mother's Day sale, they have them be end of summer sales and just kind of rebranding it for the end of the year. So that's been really successful for Q3. And then for Q4, I agree with Katie. Think about the early shoppers, think about the mid shoppers, and think about the late shoppers. So at TSG, we usually identify that the early shoppers, they want to get ahead on things. They want to feel like they have a good variety to pick from, a good selection, a good little bit of a deal. And then the late shoppers, they want you just to tell them exactly what to buy. So make that gift guide, put it on your website, make that collection ad, and have people drive exactly to the products they want to get, and make sure you're being super specific with that. Everyone likes good curation. Everyone likes assistance with shopping. So the more personal you go with your events and your campaigns and making everything you select for your events feel like it's just this curated experience, the better it'll go.
That's super fascinating. And what do you guys think, kind of hot topic right now, what do you guys think of COVID sales or coronavirus, relief bracelets? I feel like I've seen people do marketing around that. Is there kind of a way to be sensitive about that, as well as, encouraging people to buy gifts and share the love a little bit? Or is that something that you don't really see that much?
Yeah, language is king, right? So how you phrase it and display it to people is what matters most. And we've seen a lot of retailers actually align their brand with bigger goals and with bigger missions beyond just being a jewelry store. So getting involved in their community with a food pantry or donating to a cause that they care about has actually really tied their personal brand to something bigger that's been helpful for their audience actually, and given like a gateway for people to associate with their store in a new way and just given new wings to them. So I encourage that at 110%. And actually, I hate to sound shallow, but sometimes when jewelry stores that have the perception that they have like really expensive pieces come out with something that's like $30 or $40 and goes to a good cause, we're seeing some retailers have people that would never come in their store shop with them again. So this lower priced item, led to a $5,000 purchase afterward. Like that's a direct example. So a lot of people don't want to make that connection, but it's really important to think about, do we have a stigma as a retail store that we're too expensive? And how do we break that barrier with something that we actually care about and are authentic about it? It could do really good things for your brand overall.
And that's a really sensitive way to think about it. It's like, if we can donate some of the proceeds and then entice you as a client, maybe you can come back, and kind of that's like the win-win-win for everybody. Donations, returning customers, and they get a great piece of jewelry out of it for a pretty affordable price. That's a really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Any last things before we get out there? Maybe any last piece of advice for them as far as getting up and running when it comes to starting their own campaigns or their own approaches to getting on social media or just on their website, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, it's going back and creating that list of priorities and looking at really some of their short-term and long-term goals as they're going towards the end of the year. Again, in this particular case, we're filming in August, but I think just looking kind of at your short-term and long-term goals and figuring out what's going to be the best vehicle to really incorporate that. Look at your site, see where those content gaps are, and see how you can naturally incorporate, some of those evergreen pieces, again, landing page, blog post, curated content that you have on your site, and how you can then, utilize that through other platforms. And we're going to talk more in depth, more about strategic, getting more in depth with some of the tools in our follow-up, podcast as well. But I think, again, looking at those priorities and then figuring out short-term and long-term goals is going to help you naturally figure out what's the best vehicle and the best channel for you in the long run.
Yeah, I would say for me, something we say at TSG all the time is just be human. People shop with people they trust, which is why the last thing I said works, because usually they discover they can trust you. So just remember to be human, build reasons for people to trust you, and remember that sentiment and truth and love is what everyone's looking for right now. So just be honest out there and show your face, and it doesn't have to be super polished and perfect. Just get on the internet and you can fix it and make it better as you go.
People are still falling in love out there. So that's important to remember. And can't thank you guys enough for joining me. We're going to have a part 2. So if you listen to this before then, you just got to wait a little bit longer. And if you listen to this after the 27th, go listen to that one next. So the next show will be on August 27th. That's going to be the live show. And that's going to be how to elevate your social strategy for success. That's going to be with Katie and Evelyn again. Can't thank you guys enough for joining me. This was great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of In the Loop. Our next episode will be on August 27th. That'll be the next live show. It's going to be covering how to elevate your social strategy for success. Again, with guests Katie Kinlaw from Punchmark and Evelyn from the Smithee Group. We do these shows live the week before, and when you come on to the live show, you get a chance to ask questions and kind of visit with us a little bit more. Special thanks to Pickup Media's Gem Lightbox for sponsoring this week's episode, and you can learn more about purchasing the Gem Lightbox and receive $20 off your purchase by going to pickupmedia.com/loop. That's pickup, PICUP, media.com/loop. Thanks everybody. See you next time. Bye.